Okay, everyone, welcome back. Today I'm chatting with Paul Ryan Jones, who is the founder of Ariri Marketing. Paul is an expert in everything on the paid acquisition side of scaling D2C brands. So I wanted to invite him on since it's the turn of the year and just get a general pulse checker on what he's seeing working across all his client accounts, how to battle constantly rising CAC, scaling, pretty much a high level overview of everything that it takes in 2026 to grow a D2C brand. So, Paul, let's just get right into it, mate, and go straight into the strategy and value if it's good with you.
Let's go, mate. Let's go. Cool. Okay, yeah. Well, I had to clarify on the Ryan we were just saying before we hit record. If you try and search Paul Jones on any social media, you will not find a black Paul Jones. So literally make sure you type in the Ryan on all of the socials. I asked Adam before this recording as well, just to understand, what is it that people are struggling with on the paid ad side and the social media side of being able to scale businesses. And the thing that keeps coming up, especially for me and also on Adam's side, kind of agreed on is acquisition cost. And a big sort of reservation that people have at the moment is they're not sure whether paid ads works, right? So, maybe in 2019, it was a certainty that paid ads work. And now people have dipped their toe in, maybe with not the best creatives or strategy. It hasn't been profitable on day one. And as a result, the conclusion is that paid ads doesn't work. And I kind of want to shatter that belief because the way that I look at paid ads is a little bit different. I see paid ads, and Adam, I'm sure you'll agree, is it's just a way to put your business in front of an audience. And if your acquisition cost is too high or your ads are not profitable, it's because your ads aren't persuasive and they're not resonating with an audience. Or maybe you haven't actually picked a specific audience. So I've got a few slides. I haven't created it specifically for this, but this worked quite well for a presentation that I did recently. Are you all right for me to share my screen, Adam? Is that cool?
Let's go straight into it, mate. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Give me a second. Cool. So most people see ads as like either black or white, and they think either it works or it doesn't work. And like, to be honest, it's bullshit. But these are the kind of reasons that we normally get. And especially, every business that we work with, I still take all of those calls just because I want to make sure they're a good fit for our framework and the way that we work. If somebody's in this mindset, it's usually because they think their niche is too small, or they think that their audience isn't on social media, or that ads just doesn't work at all. And that's not true. So kind of skipping through a bit of this, either if your ads aren't profitable at the moment, it's because people don't want what you're selling, which is a business problem. And I'm pretty sure everybody on this list that is getting this email at the moment or is watching this video, you probably all have sales, right? You've got customers, and that's not the stage of business that you're at the moment. So we know it's not A. People do want what you're selling. It's just that your ads aren't persuasive enough. Now, in terms of fixing that, there's a couple of things I just want to clarify because you don't need to have the sexiest ads. I think a lot of brands, it tends to be the bigger brands, to be honest, they get a bit obsessed over making sure they have the sexiest, polished, highly branded, congruent ads. When we're running social media advertising, we want it to not look like an ad. Sometimes we'll do little things on purpose, like we might, if we're packing a suitcase, we'll put dirty trainers on top of a fresh toothbrush. And we get all of these people commenting, and as soon as we share it with the brand, they're like, yeah, that's off brand. It doesn't really make sense. Can you explain it to me? But that's what marketing is. I'm trying to get engagement, right? So the ad doesn't need to look sexy. It doesn't need to be polished. You also don't need to have a massive social media presence. Now, there are three things that I'm going to go through in this call specifically, but just to kind of knock over or tick some of these off. I had a bit of a brainstorm, like what is it when we analyze our best performing ads that keeps coming up over and over again? I do have three favorites, like I said, and I'll go into those in more detail in a minute. But these are the things that come up. So know your customer in excruciating detail. Don't just know your customer is female and she lives in the UK or the US. That's very, very broad. What are the things that this person's struggling with? What have they tried before? What would make them not want to buy from you? Or what are the horror stories that are preventing them from wanting to try your product in the first place? Be specific. Once you know who that customer is, make sure that all of the language that you're using in your ads is very specific to that core person. Identify a problem worth solving. again, the bigger the problem, the more readily people are going to be to spend money to fix that problem. So have a think about that, especially for you brands that have multiple SKUs. Maybe you're a health and wellness company and you've got multivitamins, you've got vitamin D, you've got magnesium, but then you have something a little bit sexier like a parasite cleanse that people haven't thought of. Maybe dig your elbow into that one a little bit. This one I'll get into in a little bit more detail. This is my favorite one, which is opening a curiosity loop. Do you know what I mean when I say that, Adam? Obviously, I'll explain it in a minute, but when I said this last time, nobody really knew what I meant. Maybe I just made it up. Does that ring a bell?
Obviously, it would be good if you could elaborate more. I sort of get the gist of what I think it might be, but it would be good if you clarified. Yeah.
Yeah. So curiosity loop, I'll give you an example. My fiance, whenever I say, Lucy, I need you to help me with something, like, can you just answer this question? And then I go, actually, do you know what? Never mind. I found the answer. It's all good. She is burning to understand what it is that I'm asking her about, even if I no longer need it. I need her. And that's because I've opened this curiosity loop. And I think the best ads do exactly that. Like, we've got an ad, again, not sexy, not polished. It's literally a static image, low production. It's a question. It looks a little bit disgusting in the background. And all it is a image that has the text, what's really hiding in your gut. And the benefit of this is it opens a curiosity loop. Like, it doesn't have some of the extra sexy stuff that a lot of winning ads have. It's just a massive curiosity loop. The only way that you can answer that question is if somebody clicks on your ad and they can finally close that loop. So that's one of my favorites. I will elaborate a little bit more, but that is a big underrated feature of a lot of winning ads. What we find as well is a lot of ads that do well are very direct. Don't be wishy-washy. If you know what your product does, just make it very direct. Don't beat around the bush. Don't take too long to explain who it's for and what problem it solves. Be very, very direct. Authenticity is a massive one. So I'm sure everyone watching is very familiar with the kind of sing-song, tuney ads that a lot of people make, which is, I've just been sent this product by this company and it's got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it's just not persuasive. And the reason it's not persuasive is because it just doesn't really feel genuine. It's not authentic. Yes, the ads that we make, they're not always real customers, but also just making sure that you spend the time to understand how to make your ad a little bit different and how do you make your customer engage and resonate with that and make sure it's reflective of their current state and also their desired state, which is the last thing on this list. Understand your customer's current and desired state. If you can understand where your customer is right now, and you can understand where they want to be in taking your products, regardless of what it is. If it's a supplement, if it's clothing, if it's jewelry, it's still, how does it make somebody feel? You can understand what it is that your product does for somebody. It's a lot easier to sell than to just list or describe what it is that you do or the benefits or the features. So yeah, very, very important. I used this example recently as well. It's just don't describe your product or service. So if I was to try and sell this product, which is a bottle of water, and all I did was describe it, I'd say it's 2 hydrogen molecules bonded with an oxygen molecule. And you'd look at me like I've got 3 heads. Wouldn't really make sense. You wouldn't click on the ad, and I doubt it would be profitable. But if I picked on you, Adam, obviously we were speaking before the call, and you're talking about how you're getting back into like all of the granular levels of the business and really driving it forward this year. And it sounds like you're using your brain a lot. I'm now going to take that same product, which is just a bottle of water, and I'm going to start to say, well, did you know that if you were dehydrated, your cognitive performance could decline by up to 25%? Adam, how much further ahead could your business be if we gave you 25% extra brain power? And
Mhm.
it's still a bottle of water at the end of the day. It still might not be the sexiest ad, but it's definitely a lot more persuasive. It's going to resonate a lot more. And that's just because we've narrowed down the focus. We're not saying it's good for this part of your body or for you to repair your muscles or anything on the physical side, but we're just focusing on one persona and understanding what is important to them and using positioning to sell to that specific audience. Does that make sense, Adam? Like when I
Makes
explain that with
perfect
your
sense. Absolutely.
cool,
Yeah.
perfect. These 3 that I've circled here, these are kind of, in fact, I could have full screen this whole time. But anyway, these these 3 Things that I've circled here are my favorite. I think you could do a lot of things wrong, but if you do these three things right, you'll be okay. Your ads will be profitable. Your acquisition cost will be where it needs to be, and you'll be able to spend more money on ads, which ultimately is what we're trying to do with all of our clients. How do we spend as much money as profitably possible on ads? So number one is to be specific. So when I'm thinking, or the team's thinking about how do we make winning ads, we have one person in mind and we speak so specifically to that one person. We're using language like you or your, or we're going down and we're understanding like what does their morning look like? What have they maybe tried in the past? And we're not trying to be broad. We don't say things like this helps these people with these problems because we're speaking in general terms. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, or it's not persuasive at least. But if we focus on one person, that one person sees the ad and they feel like it was made specifically for them, hits them right in between the eyeballs. It's like we've got a camera on them and we know exactly how they're feeling and what they're thinking. They're going to be more inclined to pay attention. They're going to stop the scroll. They're going to pay attention to the ad and click on it. And we have a much higher chance of converting that person. And what happens is there's a lot more of these people. So you don't have to worry, especially the big brands. Again, they kind of think about like total addressable market. How do we go after as many people as possible? Go after a core specific persona, be as niche as you can. And I guarantee there are so many other people on the other side of that screen that feel the same way in that this ad was made for them. So that's kind of number one, is to be specific. Number two is to be direct. So we see a lot of ads, especially as I'm auditing a lot of accounts at the moment, their ads might be a little bit vague or ambiguous, and it might be a good concept in theory, but because they're trying to make the product sound even more mysterious than it is, it kind of goes over the head of the person that's watching it. We just want the ad to be so basic. Like a kind of lens that I look at things through is, would this make sense to a 5-year-old? If I showed this ad to a 5-year-old child, how old's your son, Adam?
If you showed the ad to a 5, how was I what?
How old is your son? He's not 5, is
He's
he?
2, but he's a
He's 2.
small little boy, so
He's
he might be able. I'm sure he's on the cognitive level of a 5-year-old.
Well, there you go. If Adam's son can look at the ad and understand why, somebody would buy it, then it's a good ad. If it takes an explanation that we don't have the luxury of being able to give, then you're not going to make the sales. So don't be indirect, don't be vague, don't use, inside language that only somebody would understand if they spent, time to look into it. Like, be very straightforward, be direct. And yeah, another lens that I kind of look at ads through is, why should I, as a target audience, stop my scroll, pay attention and click? If that's obvious in the first 3 seconds, your ad is going to be a lot more effective. So be direct in all of your advertising. The third one is the curiosity loop, which I kind of explained as well. You want to make sure that your ads create some kind of curiosity. The more information you give, it's not always the better. And I think that's the trap that a lot of brands fall into, is they kind of just make a very busy ad and they want to go from one benefit or one pain point or one message and angle to the next. And it becomes a little bit confusing. And at the end of the video, you've got all of this information and you kind of don't need to click on the ad anymore because you can come back to it later. Whereas if we give people just enough, if I use an extreme example, let's say we've got a video and the video, as it gets to the best bit, it just cuts off, it goes blank completely. Those that have watched, the initial parts of the video, maybe it's a 30-second video, they're 20 seconds in, they're going to have to do something with that curiosity. I'm not recommend you cut the ads off and it look like this whole like rookie error or mistake, but that kind of mindset is helpful because you need to give somebody a reason to click. A lot of people do this in a bit of a lazy way with an offer, click to redeem this. You can do that, but really we don't want to be giving away margin if we don't need to. Instead, we want to make the ad so good that people click on it and then we can sell through the landing page and the copy that's on that page. But as long as there is some reason to click, to find out how this or to understand more about that, maybe you make a 3 reasons why ad and you only give 2 of the reasons. And the third reason is the most important, that if you don't do this one, the other 2 don't even make sense. But for us to explain the third one, you have to click on the ad. I guarantee you're going to get a lot more clicks than if you just put all three reasons in the same ad. And people just automatically think, right, I've got what I need, do my own research, and I'll come back to it later. That's not what you want people to do, having seen your ad. You want them to click, you want them to buy. Those are the three main things. Let me just have a look if there's anything else that I've got here. There's a few examples. What I could do is, Adam, I'll send you some examples of content that I've done quite well. They won't all be as straightforward and basic as kind of this one that I showed you here. But just to give you an understanding, in over a 7-day period, this one spent 19K and the ROAS on a top of funnel ad is a 3.16. Immediately, you kind of look at this ad, you think it doesn't have enough to get people in the buying mode and ultimately generate sales, but it does. It does. And so you don't always need to create overly complicated ads. Just make sure it ticks those three things, and I'm sure you'll be in a much better place.
Fantastic. I do have some quick follow-up questions, Paul.
Yeah.
Excuse me. In the interest of time, because these can be obviously like very detailed questions that we could speak about for hours. Let's try and keep the
Yeah.
answers to under a minute. But I know these are hot topics circulating in the ecosystem at the moment that people will want to know the answers to them. Especially, I speak to our clients all the time, and these are the things that consistently crop up. Great presentation, by the way. There's so many parallels, even though we're talking about B2B, sorry, B2C, like the same principles just apply to B2B. Like, as you know, we advertise on LinkedIn. And when you were going through your deck, I was thinking, how can I leverage some of these tactical things to apply them to our um, ads that we're doing? But anyway, first one is you've just shown a really ugly, well, static image with a
Cheers,
very
mate.
basic message. Well, it goes back to your point on like how polished people think they need the ads to be. What type of formats are you seeing working for you and your clients in the account? Is it ultimately it's about the ad itself, but is there any type of ratio between, static images, videos, carousels? What's the general mix that you're seeing at the moment?
Good question. So we were finding that it was almost all video. And if I was to look at our best performing accounts and I'd go through, it would be 90% video ads. There's a lot more images doing a lot better now. So we're starting to flip our ratios in terms of what we're creating for brands just based on best performers. Now, what I will say is every ad account has its own personality. So you do have to just test and find what works for your audience, for your business, and lean into what works. There is a new update. I'm sure you've heard of it, Andromeda on Facebook as well. That rewards creative diversity. So, what I recommend is you find the winning angle, which is the psychology. What is the message that's going to get people to want to buy this product? And then once you understand what that is, create a video version, an image, a carousel. Within the videos, don't just have actors on there, but maybe have a podcast set up, somebody doing their makeup and they're talking about the same thing, maybe somebody on a dog walk. And that diversity, even though it's the same angle and it's the same message, Meta is going to show your ads to more people just because you're not using the same ad and all you've done is change a few words or made it shorter or change the hook, but it's fundamentally different. So I'd recommend that test, but I'd say don't sleep on images. They are probably now performing better than even videos, generally, as a bit of a generalization.
Interesting. I do see a lot of people go back and forth on that on X. And like you said, maybe we've veered off so far into it has to be video. And now a lot of people, because it's more scalable as well, right? It's like to generate, especially with AI tools, a lot of images. And you touched on a point there. Again, I would love to just hear your answer in under a minute. Creative volume, how important is it, and does it differ based on the maturity of the brand? For example, if you are going from 0 to 100K,
Yeah.
do you really need to scale creative volume as opposed to a brand who's operating at 7 figures a month? Like, what type of volume are you seeing is necessary to scale the ad accounts?
Yeah, good question. It's we've moved, especially with this update again, we've moved from like spamming volume into the account and that being a good thing to now actually we think about personas instead of volume. So how many personas can we go after? So if we have, just to make up a product, let's say we've got a CBD calming peanut butter for dogs. There's an obvious one is anxious dogs. But could we within that go after people that are thinking about buying a dog? Could we go after people that are first time pet owners that have puppies? maybe people that have experienced a very specific traumatic experience with a dog. I'm just within that trying to find all of the niches or personas. Another example is weight loss is a good one. So instead of thinking, how do we do, go from 20 pieces of content to 100 to 150, don't just think of volume. Who are all of the people that could benefit from this product? Is it people that are struggling with hormonal weight? Is it people that have struggled with weight their whole lives? Have they recently put on weight? Um, are they considering medical weight loss? Maybe that's a different persona, and making specific ads for those personas and just doing that as much as you can. So I'd say in terms of creative volume, be led by the amount of personas that you've got. If you've got more personas, make more ads. If you've got limited personas, try and open and expand that and think about how could you maybe position the same product to go after smaller subset audiences.
And then assuming when Meta finds the winning persona, so to speak, like highest LTV, then I assume you're doubling down on creative for those angles. Is that correct?
Yes, but there is also scope now to service the smaller guys as well.
Mm.
So if we've got maybe we've got a product that's like a gut health product, there might be a very niche audience like people suffering with IBS, and you might have the bigger macro audience where you can spend most of the time and make most of the creators for. But Meta will start to allocate budgets based on the potential of that audience. So instead of just having one main audience and putting everything that you can into that audience, I'd recommend you do that, maybe 80-20 rule, have most of your efforts going towards that core audience, but make sure you have other strategies and ads that also speak to these smaller audiences as well, and keep them all on because they all feed this ecosystem, which is your ad account, and help maintain that performance as well as you spend more.
Makes perfect sense. And just a final question on tying everything together. You mentioned about obviously the ads, selling the click, bringing people to the site. What's the general best practice? Is it to send people to the product description page, a dedicated landing page? And also, just on the back of that, is do you think an agency like yours has to own that full customer journey? Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table. And is that something that you do for clients as well? Because it just has to be congruent, like marrying up those two experiences together.
Yeah, good question. So we'd start with a product page. So let's start with a product page to begin with, unless the ad account is already very sophisticated and we're at a different level of the journey. But let's say typically, if I'm thinking about your question, we want to start with something that is a static variable that remains unchanged. So we have the product page and it's quite broad, it's quite generalized. Then we'll run the ads to understand what are the personas that are making the most sense. And then once we have those personas, what I'd recommend is building a bespoke landing page that goes after that specific key audience. An example is we've got a mushroom coffee brand at the moment, which is a very competitive space. We're finding a lot of success with night shift workers. So maybe it's like nurses or truck drivers. So what we did to begin with is we've got the product page, which is the same thing that all of the audiences are seeing once they click on the ad. And then once we find pockets of opportunity for us to scale, like the truck drivers or like the nurse shift workers, night shift workers, we'll make a specific landing page for those people. Now, we personally, as an agency, we don't create that. I'm quite a big fan of like agencies specializing on one specific vertical just so that they can absolutely master that channel. But we need to be able to solve that problem. So whether that's we recommend them to somebody that specializes in that, whether they have an in-house team, whether we audit their account, let them know what we're looking for in terms of rough copy and what we want it to look like with examples, and they have a developer that can do that, great. But as long as we can get to that next evolution, that will help as we spend more later down the line to make it more efficient so that we can continue scaling.
Understood. Well, this has been fantastic, mate, and lots of strategic things that people can just action straight away. And well, we're still under 25 minutes, so really appreciate your time. Obviously, you don't have to give the spiel about how to find you because I'll drop your LinkedIn as well as the website into the chat. But would love to just finish on what is your best advice when it comes to scaling Meta in 2026, just in a couple of sentences, if possible.
Okay, let me streamline this. Uh, Product, persona, creative. Just to explain that, if you have an amazing product that people want, you can get a lot more wrong. You don't have to have the best ads. You don't even have to absolutely nail a persona because it will just sell. Like the new iPhone, always going to be people lining up because they have a very good product reputation. So think about that, because I think a lot of brands have that sunk cost fallacy where they've kind of, maybe they've got a favorite product or it's got higher margin for them and they're thinking about what's best for them as the business. But I think about what is most attractive to a customer, and I start first with the product. Think about what is your best product that you can promote. Once you then have that, then think about the persona who can buy this product, and then start to think of creatives. And it's in that kind of order. I think a lot of people get that wrong and they just think, let's just throw loads of creative at this one product and eventually it'll work. Make it easier for yourself. Focus on the product first, then the persona, then the creative.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate it. As I said, the links will be there if anyone wants to follow up directly with Paul, but really appreciate your time and let's chat again soon.
Appreciate you, man. And everybody remember the Ryan when you search my name on any social.